Hi Angels. This will be the chapters 29 of You Are My Heroes by Lavender Thoughts 21 on AO3. Time out. After the incident in the bathroom, Bakugo seemed to have made a point to stop his pretend play, and instead opted to color on the coffee table. Midoriya loudly protested for a good couple of minutes, wanting to go back to playing zombie superheroes with Katsuki. The blonde didn't budge, rolling a maca to Izuku so he could draw too. To this, Izuku pouted, accepting the situation, and helped Bakugo with his drawings. Every couple of seconds, the blonde would look back at the man, catching Aizawa's eye and retreating to his drawing after a second. After the 12th time, Aizawa walked over to see what it was about. The man always had a quiet pace in his steps, so when Katsuki turned to look at the man again, the blonde jumped up surprised to see the man close to him. Bakugo's eyes widened as the man kneeled next to him, and despite his heart racing, the boy kept his eye contact. "I saw you staring at me, Katsuki. I'm not mad at you. Are you still mad at me?" As always, Aizawa was straightforward. Midoriya stopped his drawing and fidgeted nervously as he stared at the scene before him. Bakugo didn't answer, but his wide eyes relaxed as he let out an angry huff. As Bakugo saw it, if Aizawa wasn't angry, he could afford to show a little dislike towards the man. And that's exactly what he did. The blonde crossed his arms and turned away from Aizawa, shunning him. Midoriya wanted to tell Bakugo to be nice, but before he could, the man let out an amused huff. "All right, I get it," Aizawa told Bakugo, getting up from his knees. Bakugo quickly turned around, seemingly shocked to have gotten away with the rude behavior. Before the man could completely walk away, Bakugo made an ah sound to get the man's attention. Despite the lack of proper communication, Aizawa heard the sound and took it as a sign to turn back around. There he found Katsuki fidgeting with his hands nervously, looking down at the floor. "What is it?" Aizawa asked, and Bakugo twirled his fingers before grabbing the All Might figure he got from the McDonald's meal. With two hands, the blonde lifted it to the man, and Aizawa grabbed it. An eyebrow lifted in curiosity. "Going to play? Play with Zawa?" Midoriya chirped into the conversation, seeing the interaction go friendly. "It's Aizawa, darling, not Zawa." Aizawa corrected the boy, but then turned his attention back to Katsuki. The blonde was staring holes into his eyes as the man received the figure. "You want to play with me?" Aizawa asked, admittedly showing a little enthusiasm for the idea. Except Bakugo shook his head no, and pushed the figure into the man's arm with a small amount of force. Confused Aizawa opened his mouth to question it, but Katsuki did the same action as a couple moments ago, turning his back and shunning the man. "Okay," Aizawa said, unsure of what to make of it. It was clear that the boy didn't want to play or interact right now, so the man left and pocketed the item. The boys went back to drawing after that, Midoriya trying to talk to Katsuki about the scene, but Bakugo seemed to have chosen to not speak for the moment, ignoring the green-haired boy and silencing him with an angry huff. Since they were enjoying their drawing time with the music on the man's phone, Aizawa went to retrieve his laptop from his room. The man figured it was about time to make that report on their being. Aizawa returned to a troubling scene. Katsuki was holding onto Midoriya's face with a marker at hand. The green-haired boy giggled as Bakugo drew soft lines on his face and colored in his nose. In just the short time Aizawa was gone, the blonde had drawn cat whiskers on Izuku's face along with a nose. "Bakugo," Aizawa scolded. The blonde let the marker fall to the ground as he turned around to face the man. There was a little bit of fear in his eyes, but of course he held up his straight face, the only sign of anxiety being in his curled-up fists on his sides. "I'm sorry," Midoriya cried out behind the blonde, trying to rub the marker off his face, but it had already bonded to his skin. "Bakugo, I know, that is not good behavior. Get a wipe and help Midoriya get it off." Aizawa used a stern voice, but didn't approach the blonde. The man didn't want to risk their fear of physical abuse by getting close. Katsuki saw that Aizawa wasn't getting closer to hit him over the head, and decided to push the man's buttons further. With a deliberate glare to mask his fear, the blonde shook his head no to the command. Aizawa was taken back from the clear disobedience. Up until now they both had shown to be good listeners. "Why are you misbehaving? Is there something wrong?" Aizawa asked with a soft voice, and once again the blonde was taken aback by the calm reaction. "Kaken, you're going to make him mad," Midoriya spoke up in a hushed tone, grabbing his friend's shirt to try to make him stand down. "I'm not mad, but this is bad behavior. I thought you two were good boys." The man put on his disappointed voice, and instead of getting the desired reaction from Katsuki, it was Izuku who got wound up by his words. "We are good. Come on, Kakan, help me with face." Midoriya pulled on Katsuki's shirt in the direction of some wet hand wipes on the side table. Before breaking eye contact with Aizawa, the blonde let out an annoyed click of the tongue. Still with Midoriya dragging him, Bakugo helps the green-haired boy wipe the marker off his face. There was a faint outline of whiskers, but Aizawa decided not to tell Izuku, fearing an outburst about being dirty. After the clean-up, Aizawa kept a close eye on Bakugu from the couch, looking up from his report more often now that he was misbehaving. Bakugu kept looking back at Aizawa, annoyed until eventually decided to sit next to Izuku on the other side of the coffee table. Aizawa felt a little hurt at the action, feeling like he lost some progress, but let it go. Bakugu bumped his shoulder with Midoriya, catching the boy's attention. Izuku looked up from his drawing to see what his friend needed, and there Aizawa saw the blonde motion his fingers like a pair of scissors, and making 2 clips with his fingers. It could have been a coincidence, but Aizawa recognized the sign language for scissors. "I do not have," Izuku said, looking through the box of miscellaneous drawing supplies in the pencil box. "I can cut something if you want," Aizawa said, and simultaneously signed with his hands, making a point to sign toward Bakugu. "What doing with hands?" Izuku questioned, tilting his head at the strange movement. Bakugu also mimicked the head tilt. Just as he thought, Bakugu didn't know sign language, and coincidentally made the sign for scissors earlier. Still, it wasn't a bad idea to teach them both a couple of signs, especially if Bakugu is prone to not speaking at times. Although this could also just be a childish reaction, since they are in fact children, that seemed unlikely considering Baku's speech so far. "Kachan wants scissors," Midoriya spoke up, but Katsuki huffed and turned away. Even though Bakugu was being unfriendly, Aizawa got up and grabbed a pair of scissors from a box on the top of the bookshelf. The boys eyed the large, not kid-friendly scissors, and admittedly Bakugu let down his aggressive act to reach up at them with puppy dog eyes. "Not safe for kids. Just show me what you want to cut, okay?" Aizawa said, as he sat down on the other side of the coffee table. "That's super pointy. Big kids' scissors are scary. What if I cut my finger away?" Midoriya spoke up about the huge scissors. Only ever seeing kids' scissors made it so that the scissors looked even more menacing. "These are adult scissors. I don't want you guys hurting yourselves, so show me what you want to cut." Aizawa directed his response to Bakugu, who started to glare as he realized he wasn't going to use the big pointy scissors. With a quick grab, Bakugu tried to take the scissors away from the man, but of course he wasn't a match for Aizawa's reflexes. "I said no," Aizawa said firmly, which seemed to make both the kids flinch at the harsh tone. To combat this reaction, Aizawa softly said, "I don't want you to get hurt. Let me cut the paper for you." Katsuki let out an annoyed click of the tongue and reached out his hand, demanding the scissors. The boy was adamant about using the scissors regardless of the man's warnings of danger. Seeing the deviance, Aizawa had to make a stand. "Again, no. It is dangerous. Midoriya, do you want me to cut something?" Aizawa asked the green-haired boy to hopefully show an example that he was more than capable of cutting the paper the way they wanted to. "Can you cut this part like a circle? It will look like a sun," Izuku asked, pointing to a bunch of swirls overlapping in red, yellow, and oranges. So overlapped it was hard to tell it was a combination of obsessive swirls from far away. Aizawa did as he was told and cut a circle from the most dense part of the drawing. Midoriya happily took it and grabbed glue from the pencil box, planning to glue it on another piece of paper. "Okay, Bakugu, what do you want me to cut?" Aizawa asked the blonde, who was making an angry face the whole time. Instead of telling the man where to cut, the boy held out his hand again, clutching his hand several times to signal he wanted the scissors. "No means no," Aizawa said once again, not planning to change his mind. The man would give Katsuki kid scissors, but unfortunately, he had to throw it away because of the middle part being worn out and causing a hazard, and he forgot to buy another pair. With an angry huff, Bakugu got up and smacked his fist on the table, making another try to grab the scissors, which of course failed. Aizawa could see the determination in the blonde's eyes, but he also saw past that mask and underneath it saw fear and uncertainty. He recognized this behavior but was surprised to see it manifest in a child this young. Bakugu was testing him, trying to see the consistency of the man's words and where the boundary was for punishment. "No," Aizawa said it more firmly in a deeper tone, not to enact fear, but rather to show Bakugu that he intends to keep his boundaries and won't be worn down. The man held his eye contact with Bakugu, both of them not sparing a glance away to show that they were serious. "Stop it, Kaken. What if he gets mad?" Midoriya's outburst broke the imaginary contest as both Aizawa and Katsuki looked over. Izuku had tears in the corner of his eyes as he held on tightly to his shirt on his chest. The boy didn't like the way Bakugu was acting towards the man, nor the man's new harsher tone. Anxiety was clear on his face, even with his eyes staring through the paper on the coffee table in front of him. "I am not mad, but I will not let Kugu use the scissors by himself," Aizawa explained. "Why are you being bad? Bad is not good. If bad, then maybe he will be bad to you and me." "Stop it, Kaken! Just tell him to cut the paper." Midoriya's rant started timid with confusion, but ended in an angry command. Bakugo went stiff for a second at the unusual anger shown to him by his usually timid friend, but relaxed when Midoriya put his head down on the table. The green-haired boy covered his head to block out light and closed his eyes, creating a quiet, isolated place to clear his mind. This was a clear expression of frustration, and he needed to calm down in his own space for a moment. Aizawa had seen something new. It was the first time Izuku had shown aggressive emotion since his arrival. After staring at Izuku for a couple of lingering seconds, it was clear that Bakugo decided to stop the test for now. Begrudgingly, the boy pointed around the paper where he wanted the paper to be cut to the man. "You want me to cut around this?" Aizawa asked in a soft, questioning tone, using his free hand to make sure he was cutting what the blonde wanted to be cut. Izuku raised his head from his isolation and saw Bakugo nod, cooperating with Aizawa. Seeing the resolution, Izuku straightened back up from hiding. Bakugo just huffed annoyed as the man cut the paper with precision. "Not mad?" Izuku asked the man one last time. "Nope," Aizawa said simply, and the boy let out a small breath of relief. Bakugo made a soft huff of defeat and scooted closer to Midoriya, headbutting the green-haired boy on the shoulder. Izuku returned the affection by putting his arm around the blonde and letting Bakugo lean on him. Aizawa found it amusing that Katsuki immediately stopped his bad behavior the second Midoriya was angry. Usually Bakugo was the leader in charge of their actions, but the second Midoriya's rare anger showed. The blonde listened and craved reassurance from his friend. For the remainder of their craft session, Aizawa cut up their paper when asked and watched as they created their art. Admittedly, it turned into colored paper glued onto other piles of paper, but they seemed entertained, and what's more, it was a way for Aizawa to be included. "Wow, these are so nice. I think it's fridge-worthy. Do you think I should hang them up?" Aizawa said with enthusiasm, seeing the hard work they put into their drawings. "Really? On the fridge?" Midoriya asked, his eyes shining. "Yeah, let's hang it right now." Aizawa grabbed their work and the boys followed him to the fridge. Once there, Aizawa grabbed some kid-safe magnets and carefully put them on the fridge. Their slightly glued soggy paintings of swirls and unintelligible shapes hung up with pride. Aizawa clapped his hands and made a whistle with his mouth, admiring their efforts. "These are really good. Didn't know I had such great artists in the house." Aizawa smiled down at them, and Midoriya let a giggle escape as he shook his hands in delight. Bakugo, on the other hand, huffed and looked away, but Aizawa saw a small blush on his cheeks. "Okay, how about we clean up and watch some cartoons?" Aizawa asked, and Midoriya nodded and ran back to the living room, Katsuki following behind him. Midoriya was hurriedly picking up the mess of dispersed drawing supplies, but Bakugo was more sluggish. Aizawa put away his scissors and helped Midoriya by picking up some hidden colored pencils under the table. "Hurry up, Kachan!" TV, Izuku said excitedly as he reached for the pencil across from Bakugo. "Come on, Bakugo, help clean up," Aizawa commanded, but the blonde just slowly put one crayon in the pencil case while they picked up the rest. With a straight face, Bakugo grabbed the corner of the pencil box and pulled it to the corner of the coffee table. Aizawa and Midoriya froze as they saw the impending action. "Bakugo, don't," Aizawa said firmly, but without breaking eye contact, Bakugo slowly pulled the box off the edge. The neatly placed art supplies spilled from the open box and crayons and pencils rolled every which way. Midoriya, seeing Bakugo's disobedience come back, whined at the mess the blonde created. Hurriedly, Izuku tried to pick up the supplies to lessen the impending punishment. "Izuku, darling, don't pick it up. Can you go sit on the couch? I'm going to talk to Baku for a second." That last sentence made both boys straighten up, Midoriya's face full of worry as he looked at Katsuki. Bakugo looked up at Aizawa with wide eyes, his heart racing as he seemingly found the limit to the man's patience. Slowly, Midoriya made his way to the couch, ignoring the distressing mess and keeping a close eye on the scene. "Bakugo, come here." Aizawa motioned the boy to come to him, and Bakugo cowered but listened, inching his way to the man with his arm over his head. "I'm not going to hurt you, buddy. I'm not mad, but I don't like the way you are behaving. Want to tell me why you dropped everything?" It was a long shot to expect an answer, and as expected, Baku shook his head no, keeping his arm over his head. Midoriya was anxiously fidgeting behind him, rocking himself in the seat as he grabbed a cushion to cover himself. "I want to keep a tidy home for you too, so I expect that kind of behavior to stop. You are going to clean up that mess by yourself, and I won't turn on the TV until you're finished. I'm very disappointed in you." Bakugo tensed up at the word disappointment, lowering his defensive arm and peering up at Aizawa with hurt-filled eyes. It wasn't until tears fell down Katsuki's face that Aizawa felt that maybe his words were too harsh. Aizawa opened his mouth to apologize, but Bakugu wiped his tears angrily and stomped away, picking up the mess of pencils thrown about. Aizawa watched with crossed arms as Bakugu picked up every last pencil and put it away neatly in the pencil box. It was only until the blonde put the case neatly on the coffee table that Aizawa gave him an approved nod. With an annoyed click of the tongue, Katsuki made his way next to Midoriya, who grabbed anxiously onto his shirt. Without any more words, Aizawa turned on the television and put on a kids' movie. With the boys huddled up on the couch, Aizawa grabbed his laptop back up and decided to finish the report he started on earlier. Now and then, the kids would take turns eyeing him from the couch, but after the movie became more engaging, they stopped looking. Midway through the movie, Aizawa finished his report and other papers, and decided to fax Tsukauchi a list of concerns for the children. In doing this, he hopes to get the boys an appointment with doctors and specialists sooner. At the very least, Tsukauchi will have an idea of which doctors would be best for their specific problems, if he sends it now. Luckily, in the corner of his bedroom, Aizawa had basically an office, a fax machine included. Of course, he didn't leave the children unattended. Instead, he stood at the door, peering down the hallway to keep an eye on them while the machines did their thing. An unexpected giggle was heard in the living room, so Aizawa made his way back, hiding behind the corner to see if they were being bad behind his back. The source of the giggle was Midoriya, who was peering down at his feet, Bakugu looking down as well. It turned out that during Bakugu's cleanup, he had missed a blue color pencil that rolled under the couch. That color pencil was now the source of a certain feline's entertainment. Lady the cat had come out of hiding to bat around the pencil. Each time the feline's paw reached out from under the couch, Izuku would let out a squeal in delight. Lady. Bakugu couldn't help but exclaim the cat's name when he saw her familiar sand-colored paws. The boys laid down on their stomachs to watch the cat play with the loose-colored pencil. The sounds of commotion under the couch made them try to see down into the gap, but they couldn't peek without falling over themselves. Each time the pencil flew out, the cat clawed it back into the abyss to bat at it some more, and for each of those appearances the boys were visibly vibrating in joy. This lasted for several minutes before Lady Bunny kicked the pencil to the corner of the room and quickly pounced on it, chewing the blunt end. Seeing the timid cat come out from her hiding places was a special occasion for the boys. So what happened next was very disappointing and in a way concerning, to say the least. Bakugu grabbed a large couch cushion that was bigger than himself and slowly got off the couch, Lady chewing on the pencil with her back to the boys, completely unaware. Midoriya copied Bakugu's actions and grabbed a cushion, but was more heavy-footed than Bakugu, so Lady turned around instantly. Still, the cat didn't move, and instead flicked her tail, annoyed and cautious of the boys approaching her. Aizawa looked on, wanting to know what the boys were planning to do once cornering the cat. Lady was mostly a timid cat and wasn't the least bit aggressive, so it wasn't a surprise that she didn't try to move when the boys slowly closed her in the corner with the cushions. Lady let out a distressed meow as she got cornered. Easily, she could have jumped over the cushions or even angrily swiped at the boys, but she didn't. Instead, she let out another distressed meow. Bakugu turned to grab another cushion from the couch, this time running back to place it on top to make extra sure she wouldn't jump out. "Look, can see!" Midoriya looked through a hole in the couch cushion fort they built around the cat. Bakugu looked through it and found it amusing when the cat let out an annoyed growl. "That's enough, let her out right now." Aizawa's stern voice surprised the boys from behind them, and they quickly returned to their places on the couch. "How terrible, poor lady. Do you think she likes being trapped like that? This is very, very bad." Aizawa scolded the boys as he walked over to the corner to let Lady out. As soon as he moved the cushion, the cat jumped out and up to the bookcase. "Bakugu, you've been bad all afternoon. I thought you liked Lady. Why would you trap her like that? How would you like it?" Aizawa said, and Bakugu let out an angry huff and crossed his arms. "And Midoriya, do you think Lady liked that?" Aizawa asked, and the green-haired boy whined at the question directed toward him and shook his head. "No, Lady is not a toy. This is very bad behavior, and I have no choice but to put you two in a timeout. No more TV, come and follow me." Aizawa's voice was stern, but that wasn't the reason for the sudden fear in the boys' eyes. It was the words timeout that got them scared. Those words distressed them so much that they got goosebumps instantly. Midoriya was already crying when he hopped off the couch to follow the man. But it was Katsuki who looked the most guilty. With hands clasped on Bakugu's shirt, Midoriya followed behind them both as Aizawa led the way. "I want you two to sit in that corner of the room. No talking, no playing, no moving. Just think about what you did wrong." Aizawa said the rules out loud as he cleared the toys from the corner of the room, leaving it bare. Midoriya's crying had turned into sobs at this point. After setting up 2 child chairs in the corner facing the wall, Aizawa turned to the boys and saw a couple of concerning signs. For one, Bakugo looked paler than usual, and his eyes were wide as he spaced out at the corner where they would be sitting. Midoriya was practically hyperventilating as he tried to babble an apology, but it just turned into distressed noise. "Come on, your timeout starts as soon as you sit down." Aizawa gestures towards the seats, putting on a softer tone to his voice. Despite this, the boys seemed to tremble as they slowly approached their seats. The blonde even stumbled a bit, as if he were dizzy as he got closer to the corner. Bakugo looked up at Aizawa, distress in his eyes almost begging to not be put in timeout. Aizawa just gestured toward the seat again, and the blonde slowly sat down. Katsuki held strong, his knuckles white as he grasped on tightly to the chair, a distant look in his eyes as he stared through the wall. Midoriya whimpered as he stepped closer to the chair and paused before reaching it, breaking into tears harder as he looked up at Aizawa. The man wanted to stop the punishment immediately, but they needed to learn the consequences, and this was the best way without causing physical harm. "Sit," Aizawa said simply, and Midoriya's crying turned to those high-pitched whines with trouble fully grasping his breath afterwards. "Follow the rules, no talking, playing, or moving," Aizawa said in a stern tone, and Bakugo lowered his head in shame. Izuku sat down and hugged himself as he cried in the corner, trying his best not to fidget. Aizawa turned on a timer on his clock for 5 minutes, just enough time to let them think of their wrongdoings, but not enough to let their minds wander. The timeout, however, wouldn't last that long, because before the 3-minute mark, Midoriya was crying even louder than before, and was at the risk of hyperventilating. That was the line for Aizawa, seeing the punishment being too much for them. "Okay, time's up. Timeout is over," Aizawa lied, and the boys looked up with the most bewildered look in their faces. "Huh?" was all Midoriya could muster before gasping to catch his breath. "You guys can get up now. Just promise me you won't be mean to Lady again." Izuku's breaths were labored, but at the very least he wasn't choking on his own breath like before. Both the boys were still tense, but got up from their seats, eager to get away from the corner of the room. "No more timeout?" Izuku asked shakily, and Bakugo stared intensely for an answer. "No, timeouts are only for a couple of minutes." "Couple of minutes? Like right now?" Midoriya questioned, looking at the floor and seeming to space out. "Yes, Auntie made time out really long time," Midoriya said, and wiped the tears off his face. Bakugo grabbed onto his friend's shirt to get his attention and shook his head. "No, you can tell me if you want. You're safe here with me." Midoriya let out a whine as he heard the comforting, soft tones in Aizawa's voice. Katsuki, on the other hand, was less than thrilled to share about their past, so he held tight on Izuku's shirt and pulled back. "Bakugo, let him speak. Nothing bad will happen. No matter what, I'm going to be here to support you too." Aizawa reassured the boys, and for a second Bakugo thought about the consequences and didn't find a reason to hold back anymore. His mother was dead. They didn't have to keep anything secret anymore. The blonde let go of Midoriya's shirt, but looked away from the man's understanding eyes. It made him uneasy at the unfamiliar sight. "What happened with Auntie?" Aizawa asked, the endearing expression of kin leaving a foul taste in his mouth due to the circumstances. Izuku was unsure now, fidgeting with his hands nervously as he looked back at Bakugo, who just huffed in response. Seeing the hesitancy, Aizawa sat on the floor in front of the green-haired boy, the position they found him less threatening in. "Izuku, darling, it's okay. You can tell me," Aizawa said, his voice low and comforting. "Auntie's timeout was for a long time," Midoriya said simply in what was barely an audible mutter. "How long?" Aizawa asked, and Midoriya whined at the question, reaching his free hand to tug softly at his curls. Long time," Izuku said once again. "A couple of hours?" Izuku shook his head no. "All night?" Izuku shook his head no. "A day?" Aizawa asked, not being able to hold back an angry tone. Izuku shook his head no again, but this time let go of his curls to shake his hands in the air, the anxiety escaping through them, at least for a second. Before Aizawa could ask again, Bakugo reached out his hand to Izuku. The boy instantly accepted it and squeezed his friend's hand tightly. "Lots of days, sometimes 2 or 3. One times it was 5. Auntie said she wanted a break, so we were in Katchin's room for a long time. Auntie doesn't like noise." Aizawa closed his eyes for a second and took a deep breath, hiding his anger in his hands as he rubbed his temples to ease the headache he was going to have from holding in his rage. Even though Aizawa tried his best to hide the unpleasant feelings, Bakugo was really good at catching even the hint of displeasure. "Huh?" Izuku questioned as the blonde pulled him back from the man. "It's okay, thanks for sharing with me. You were very brave to talk about this. I'm sorry you boys went through such a bad time." Aizawa was going to let it go, Write it down in the report for later and let them cool off, but suddenly Izuku piped up again. Auntie's timeout is different because we didn't sit down. We just quiet all day in Kachan's room, not loud, which is very boring. Midoriya finished his sentence with a pout, his eyes looking distant as he thought about the past. These statements explained why the boys looked so nervous when the punishment was first brought up. It was a very traumatic experience. You are safe now, no more timeouts, Aizawa declared, and Bakugu looked up at him to read if there was any deceit, but saw nothing to indicate so. No timeouts? Izuku asked, looking down at the floor and tapping his feet together. Aizawa couldn't see his eyes, but he just knew they were wide with distress. I promise you two will never be in timeout again, Aizawa said boldly, knowing that it would take extra effort to make sure their future foster knew of this awful situation. Never again? Izuku questioned in an unsure tone. Izuku Katsuki, look at me for a second, Aizawa demanded, and the boy slowly peered up. Bakugu, hearing the shift of tone, also looked the man straight in the eye. I promise you will never ever be in timeout again. I'll make sure of it. This is the end of chapters 29. I'll see you in chapter 30. If you have suggestions, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe to know when the next one is out. Have a good day, angels.